I'm going to hit the record button. And we are going to now go into a informal presentation of our mapping softwares that are accessible today, and these mapping databases that really all communities can utilize for the opportunity to really look deeply into Charlottesville. But this is the same kind of content that we can use for all. And a lot of these databases are downloadable, and they're active, and they're constantly being improved. So we should have some good activities ahead. I am going to close my video, but pass this over to John Majorana with Virginia Clean Cities. John, will you introduce yourself a bit more and guide us through this?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I'm John. I'm a program coordinator at Virginia Clean Cities. Been working for the team for about 18 months. And yeah, today I'm going to walk through an example of an electrification walkthrough and overview for the city of Norfolk. And this is a repeatable presentation that we hope other communities can do and follow. Plan out projections and use these resources for their own planning. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and walk through. There it is. And then give me a second to put it in present mode. All right, I have a lot of tools open right now, so it might run a little slow. So again, this is just an example of a presentation of a plethora of resources that you can use when planning for when doing EV readiness in your community. So yeah, we like to start off with some examples of other communities working through their EV readiness and what kind of progress others are making. So these are just some examples. One is actually in Charlottesville. This was a electric school bus event. We have an example of a motor pool event in the city of Norfolk, and one of a solar charger event at our actual headquarters in Harrisonburg.
I interject, John, in that Charlottesville photo with the school bus, Emily, you can see Superintendent Curley there in the orangish knit hat. So he attended our electric school bus event and was really excited about what he saw.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was an awesome event. It got a lot of the news came out and a lot of people were out there. Everybody got to ride around the bus too, so it was good.
Cool. When was that?
November last year? No, spring.
I don't quite remember.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah. It was with Gen 180 as well. So I won't get into it, but it's good to establish some EV basics, or EVSE, electric vehicle charging basics, talk about level 1, level 2, and DC fast charging, their charging times, their primary uses, and then some visuals is really helpful when you see them out in the wild or when you looking to purchase. So again, charging is very use case based. So you'll want to talk about level 1 use cases versus level 2 use cases, and eventually DC fast charging use cases. Level 2 will work well in for public charging at workplaces, shopping centers. Level 1 is primarily used as at your home or residency. This is just an example of the EV charger growth in Virginia. As you can see, it's growing more than any other alternative fuel, and it's going to continue. So I think, yep, we've reached about 1,000 chargers in Virginia as of last year. So this is the first tool I want to talk about is the Alternative Fuel Data Center's alternative fuel station locator. And so this station locator is a database of all the alternative fueling stations in Virginia and where they are, and their precise location. So let me unshare and just quickly demo that tool. Yeah, so this is the alternative fueling station locator. And say you want to find a charger in Norfolk.
Let's do Charlottesville this time.
Yep, that would make more sense. Is there 2 T's?
Yep, 2 T's.
Familiar?
That looks familiar.
Charlottesville, and then it'll come up with the stations in your area. So these are all going to be, pretty sure, electric. And these are charging stations. So this one, for example, Water Street Garage. You get directions. It's a DC fast charger. So amongst that, you can select the charger types you want, certain connectors that you're looking for, and then any other alternative fuel. And then there's an advanced filter that you can use to get even more customization. You can select if you want to look for any private stations versus public stations, or even planned stations. And then you can generate map results as well for sharing.
Is there an app for that?
I believe there is an app.
There is a Apple and an Android app for this. And then one thing that's cool about this, obviously downloadable data, there's also an embed tool. So you can, after you get to your searches that you like, such as for your community or for fuel, there's a embed tool in the middle of the bottom right under the map. And it'll give you code that you can paste into a website. And this is the same database that the US and Canada use in federal law for their infrastructure.
Yep. And just to mention there is another tool out there called PlugShare. This company does a similar thing where you can find charging stations in your area, but it more acts as like a live feed, so people can input if they're charging, if the station is down, the pricing of the station, just a swath of information. So a bit more live and up to date. So that's just another tool.
More crowdsourced. Yeah.
Yeah, more crowdsourced, exactly. So I'll jump back to the presentation. There we go. Taking a second to load.
Hey, John, just along the way, do you want to just do a screenshots of and just like drop them into that Norfolk presentation, replace that content with Charlottesville content?
Yeah, let's see if my computer can do that. So, well, this is just the state of Virginia, but yeah, you know what? I think my computer is going to go too slow for me to do some screenshotting, so I think I'm just going to carry on. That's all right with you, Alan?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. All right. And so this was an example of PlugShare. This is in Norfolk. As you can see, yeah, it gives you the number, it gives you the payment, parking level, and pictures, which is really helpful. So this is from Atlas Public Policy, they have a tool where you can see the EV registrations by county and zip codes, and it'll tell you how many EVs are registered, are on the road, their proportions to charging stations in that community. And you can also see the breakdown of the make and model makeup of the vehicles in your community. So once again, I'm going to hop out. And then go to, so we have all of these tools that I've talked about or going to talk about on our Drive Electric Virginia EV dashboard website. And so the first tool listed is exactly that tool, the Atlas Public Policy tool. And see, you can see here, you can click on Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes
So-
a second to load.
When is that data? 412, it said?
And so this
412.
website is updated annually, and so it will
Okay.
actually show several years worth of data going back as well. But for this 412 EVs is 246 BEVs, and that was end of year 2021 data. And so there will be
Okay.
another update. So at this point, since it's October, this is almost 1 year old.
Right.
Yep.
Cool.
And then this is Charlottesville's makeup. It's usually mostly Tesla and then the following makes. But
It's
it gives you a
gonna be-
good.
I was just
Go
going
ahead.
to say, it's going to be fun to watch that data change over the next couple of years.
Yeah, most certainly. Jump back again. The next slide talks about the some electric vehicle charging infrastructure projection reports. 10%. What is EV charging? What does a 10% EV adoption look like in your community, and how do you prepare for that concerning the infrastructure? And so this report, we did 13 different reports for different regions in the state in Virginia, and we did one for Charlottesville, and this was using the EVI Pro Tool Lite, which is the electric vehicle infrastructure projection tool on the Altoona Fuel Data Center. And I will run through that now.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry, loading times. Okay, so the EVI Pro tool takes vehicle populations and driving behaviors in the communities that it offers and the states to generate what sort of charging infrastructure that you are going to need, the quantities and the types. Yeah, and it'll calculate some numbers, and you'll have options to customize that data. And so we will do Charlottesville. So estimate for a city or urban area.
And so by default, Emily, it will show us the Charlottesville, the greater area. But what we can do is we can input custom numbers for it.
Yes, I
so
came
like just
prepared.
Charlottesville City.
I came prepared with Charlottesville City census data.
Perfect. And so
Awesome.
did you get that from census.gov, Emily?
Yes.
Beautiful.
So the population estimate of Charlottesville as of July 1st, 2021 is 45,672 people.
Okay. And so we can calculate that. We can calculate that with some with some, by facing that against the percentage of, compare it to the state and then multiply it by the amount of chargers that's outputted for the state of, for Virginia. And I'll show you that right after this demo. And so, yeah, this is a greater region of Charlottesville. This is using census data, and it's trying to include populations of 50,000 people. It's very kind of twisted, but that's the philosophy behind it. And so you can
John,
only use
for this one, if you just entered 4,500, that could be a stand-in for 10% of the 45,000.
Okay. So you want to do 4,500?
Or we could be slightly, we could have it down to that number again. Do you want to read your number again, Emily?
Yeah, it's 45,672.
So maybe 4, 5, 6, 7.
That would be about 10%.
Okay. Calculate. All right, and so we get our results: 98 workplace level 2 charging plugs, and this is just, yeah, just again, this to support 4,567 plug-in electric vehicles based off the population, 10% of the population. 66 public level 2 charging plugs and 12 public DC fast charging plugs. And it actually gives you an estimate. There are currently 31 plugs with an average of 2.6 plugs per charging station. But so that's the default output that we get from the tool. If we want to do some more customization about some more realistic numbering, we can edit the vehicle mix. However, we think this is a pretty average vehicle mix between plugins and all electric vehicles currently. But down here it says, how much support do you want to provide for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles? Right now, it's saying that about half the time we want the plugins to be running on electricity.
John,
but,
real quick, sorry to interrupt. Can you
go for it?
do control enlarge just a tad?
Yep.
Text is small even on my big monitor. Awesome, thank you.
As I was saying, ideally you want them to be running on electricity most of the time, if not all the time. So we'll click full support for plug-in electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And then below that is percentage of drivers with access to home charging. Yeah, and so not everyone has access to home charging. The statistic that we share is that 40% of Americans, Virginians, have access to electricity within 20 feet of where they park, meaning the other 60% don't. And so the lowest that this number will go is 50%, because not everyone can charge at home. So we'll put that to 50, and we'll recalculate our number.
So, John, I happen to know that Charlottesville has a 60% 60% of our population are renters.
Okay.
So do you know how that affects this number? I mean, I imagine not very many renters have access to charging infrastructure.
So I'll chime in that a lot of those multifamily facilities will then need some sort of charging. A lot of those renters, and that also may need more community charging. Charlottesville and a lot of areas of Virginia also have right-of-way issues between where maybe the older homes and the curbs are. Places with urban street parking in particular will have a real challenge compared to places that might be more suburban with a driveway and garage. And so it's mostly the right-of-way issue. It gets down to this 50% at home charging.
Thank you, Alan. So yeah, you can make these customizations as you see fit in the vehicle mix if you'd like. And yeah, so if we go back, presentation. As I said, we talk about those numbers and some recommendations in our reports on our website for, again, 13 different regions. Moving right along. And here's a little bit of digestion for that process for the city of Norfolk. laying out those assumptions that we had 50% of the population charging at home and then full support, and then what these numbers need or what is necessary to support that. And then these are rough estimates of the number of multi-unit dwelling and curbside chargers and single home chargers, just using a 10% or 20% comparison to the amount of chargers needed.
And so, John, should we go ahead and run those calculations for the 4,500 vehicles estimate of Charlottesville?
Sure.
And so we can sort of, and before you close any of these out, keep those windows open so that we can finish up a Charlottesville version of this presentation after this, before you close any tabs. But let's go ahead and we can run them based off based off what we just talked about.
Okay, so our calculations for this page is still loading. So number of single home chargers, we estimated about 40% because of the statistic we used. So let's do some math. So the number was 4, 5, 6, 7. Times 0.4, right? About 1,800 charging stations are expected to be single home or residential charging stations.
And so a lot of those people can get by, Emily, with a 110 outlet, or they could install a home electric vehicle charger through utility programs, or receive a tax credit. There is a federal tax credit for people installing those chargers, but that is a lot. That is 2,000 people installing some sort of electrical outlet excess at their home. Or
that is a lot.
Using a nice, if they have a really nice leaf blower outlet, they can use that instead. But a lot of people will be installing new outlets just so that they're fully capable of moving that volume of electricity safely.
And then we estimated about 10% for any curbside charging or charging at multi-unit dwellings. So that number comes out to 456.
So that 456 what, John? I'm sorry, I missed that.
That would be 456 chargers.
At workplaces.
Charging plugs.
Okay.
At multi-unit.
I'm sorry,
dwellings
these would be just extra multi-unit dwelling curbside chargers. Emily, you asked about how that number of renters affects it. And so so that would be an additional number of multi-unit dwelling curbside charging ports that are not in the public or the workplace charger list.
Okay.
And that's just to catch up with that difference between the 50% that we used in the model and that 60% of Charlottesville is renters.
Right.
Awesome. So next I want to show you a tool a tool called the Energy Zones Mapping Tool, created by Argonne National Laboratory. And so what this tool does, it's a free tool. It takes about 300 visual overlays or GIS layers over the United States, and and you can use this for EV infrastructure planning, and it'll give you a ton of different considerations, as you can see here on the screen. We have the communities of color overlay, household transportation energy burden, opportunity zones and substations, low-income communities, and so it's a load of different considerations that you should take when determining suitability for charging stations or any planning that you have. And so I can go and demo the tool real quick.
This is another
DOE supported tool, Argonne National Lab of DOE created it. Constantly updating it too.
After the first meeting I attended, I signed up, so I have an account.
Excellent.
But it
Awesome.
was really daunting to try to use it without any instruction. And then I was happy to hear yesterday that in the report that just came out, there's some instructions on how to use the tool.
Yeah, it is a lot at once, and I have a ton of layers here, but let's go look at Charlottesville. So yeah, you would zoom in on the area that you want to analyze, and so you'll have nothing on the left side to start, but to get a layer, you'd go to library, and then you would search through the map layer catalog and find a layer that you want to look at. And so, for example, I want to see the electrical substations. I want to find out my proximity to electrical substations. And so you would click add this layer to my map. And then it would populate on the left. And it'll tell you exactly where those substations are. And so there's a ton. Urban area, EPA EJ screen, for air toxics cancer risk. Like I said, household, housing, transportation, energy burden, major roads, low-income communities, population density. And so you can take a view and see, you can see the makeup of your community. And then as a note, if you want to compare different layers, or if say you want to see population, or say you want to see household transportation energy burden, how much of someone's income is going to transportation, but you also want to see where these charging stations are. Which I don't have. So let me go put that layer on real quick. Let's do, for example, non-Tesla. Well, let's do non-Tesla level 2. Add that layer to our overlays, and then the household transportation energy burden layer is very it's opaque, so you can't see. So you want to go to layer properties, and you can reduce that opacity so you can get a better view. And this will go well in your presentations when sharing this information.
That's really interesting. It looks like the area around the university has the highest energy burden.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That might be true. I mean, universities are energy intense enterprises.
Yes. And they have centralized heating
Right.
and yeah.
We're still on coal, you know.
9 to 10%.
And then again, this is transportation energy. So this is the cost that people pay for moving around, and it may even incorporate some transit layers. But it's the gasoline and the commute cost modeled. And it's also a percentage of income. So students also might challenge the census data, as their income might be tracking at like $0.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do they account for, I mean, that is like our highest population of students in that area.
And each of these layers is detailed. The transportation energy burden layer is flagged by Argonne National Laboratory. And so each one of these will have some significant data sets behind them and publications.
And another tool that I want to note that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce or Alan, that Argonne, yep, okay, it says it in the URL. Argonne National Laboratory created is this GEM geospatial energy mapper, which is like, which is an easier to use tool with the overlays that are in the EZMT. And so, for example, I clicked electric vehicle map, my mapping theme, I want it to be electric vehicles. And you can check, you can select any of these, and it'll auto populate overlays that are relevant to that search. And so you can toggle on and off. It's very easy. I want to look at planned stations, or I want to see the substations again. And then you can select, I got transmission lines, which is great for knowing grid capacity, and then the average annual daily traffic. So it's a bit less daunting and easier to use for people who don't want to make an account for EZMT or maybe gets overwhelmed. All right, so I'll hop back the presentation once more. And again, these are just examples, or snapshots that you can create as well of the EZMT tool compared with charging station overlays. This is a map from the alternative fuel station locator that I referenced earlier. There is a fuels corridor toggle that you can see which corridors are EV ready and or other fuels. And so this is just an example of EV signage ready corridors and the stations along those corridors. One more tool to mention is the Regional EV Charging Infrastructure Location Identification Toolkit, which is a mouthful, but this is in short a tool to analyze the suitability for DC fast charging stations. And so it'll take,
what do we call it internally, John? MJ Bradley tool?
MJ Bradley tool. So this tool is, this tool used to undergo,
Okay.
It underwent a lot of transformation, actually. It used to be just corridors, but now it's different communities. And so it'll take different considerations for suggesting a census to house a DCFC charging station or charging stations. So for example, if you look on the right side of the screen, this community or this census tract is ranked number 1. It is a great distance from other DC fast charging stations. It has a high traffic volume, a high commercial activity, which would be suitable, and it's a high population density. So a lot of different indicators pointing to this would be a great location or census tract for DC fast charging stations. So this is just another planning tool, but it's only for fast charging stations, which is situational. Okay. Yes, and they did say one day maybe they'll include L2, but not as of yet. This is just another slide talking about just 40 initiatives from the incoming NEVI funding. And so this is just a map, a couple with the MJ Bradley tool or this tool. This is just an example of, hey, we were suggesting, hey, these stations could go here because of the tool that we looked at and different considerations. And so in line with the Justice 40 goal. And so those purple stations are in Justice 40 designated areas. And that was just a draft attempt at laying down some stations.
Is there a Justice 40 layer in the
EZMT?
Yeah.
I think there is. Let's just go ahead and check real quick. Because they have their own map.
And you can see EPA EJ screen in there as well, which is another sister agency's equity tool.
Okay, it would be right here. They do have their own tool. that I can pull up real quick if you'd like to see.
I mean, I am interested in that, but I want to be mindful of you all's time.
We'll look at it. We'll look at it. It's just going to take
Okay.
me a second to figure this out real quick.
Emily, it's a really good question, and it's the kind of thing that we could add into the to the deck, considering. I will say that each of these agencies treats these things a little bit differently. EPA, DOT, Department of Energy, and so for planning purposes, it's good to be aware of what the sponsor is looking for,
Okay.
which might be different depending on the program year or the specific programs.
There we go.
And
Found
John,
it.
we are still looking at the PowerPoint.
Yep. I just had to find it. Let me. All right. Yep. The electric vehicle charging Justice 40 map. Here's a description of the context and then some of the considerations that it uses in its calculations. So, for example, yep, it'll consider existing data sets, vulnerable populations, including socioeconomic, housing burden, transportation access, climate hazards, resilience. And so that's what they use to generate their Justice 40 designated areas.
Okay.
So we can zoom in. This is also created by Argonne National Laboratory. Awesome.
Okay, great.
So you can see the designated area, the roads, where the stations are. And so if we open this up, legend. Yep, this is their interim guidance, DAC. Public EV charging stations, non-Tesla, DC fast. And you can toggle other ones. There's just a few on this one. But you could toggle electric substations as well.
Okay.
And the U.S. Department of Energy identified those disadvantaged communities by looking at about 30 different metrics and sort of combining them into a metric soup, and that is detailed there.
Yep.
But it
So if
might
you click
be
this
different
disclaimer.
depending on who is funding what project.
This is interesting because this area of Charlottesville is a blend of students and like historically underserved Black neighborhoods.
There we go.
And again, you can screenshot this or print it off for presentations. And we'll recommend adding it.
So was that part of the EZMT or was that a separate tool?
That was a separate tool, but
Okay.
I think it may be in the EZMT. Maybe it was just listed under DACs.
It was created by the same team who did EZMT.
I have a feeling it is in here. Oh, there we go. DOE, DOT, interim guidance, DACs. I believe that's it.
Okay.
Let's see if it populates.
Yep.
There you go. It is in. It just wasn't under. Okay. So DOE, DOT, interim guidance, DACs. Awesome.
That's the JPA neighborhood, right, Emily?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jefferson Park Avenue.
So as we seek to deploy technology in the Charlottesville area with the Mid-Atlantic project, it could be valuable to have a listening session or engage some of those neighborhoods to see if they would want chargers or if they would want something else like a bicycle path. But it may be a good area to engage.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about how to better our public engagement recently.
Volta offers community free chargers that have like a advertisement based model.
Mhm.
And that kind of thing might be something to engage with if there's a shopping facility at the edge of that. Rather than a high cost retail charger, for example.
Yeah. I have so much to learn. I am so appreciative of you guys taking the time to walk me through this. I feel like the dots are really like coming together for me.
That's perfect.